Hi, I'm David Pereira. Welcome to my channel. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about what not to do during the refinement session. Let's start understanding what is the refinement session about. It is the moment that the Scrum team sits together and refine the product backlog items to a level that they can be worked into the next sprints. Simple like that, right? Yet we can do so many mistakes that will transform the experience of the refinement as a horrible movie. We don't want to do that. Let me tell you what not to do. And being very honest with you, I have done all of this. Let's start with this one. Focus on the solution. What is the problem of this? Imagine as a product owner, you believe you are the smartest person on the team and you are the one who will bring the solution, the perfect solution to solve the user's problems. And developers should implement that. But developers will think,
wow, we haven't created this solution, someone else thought that for us.
And which is the problem we are really solving? Developers want to solve a problem. They don't want to implement a solution. Because if you bring them the solution, they will lack the ownership. You should bring problems for them, then they will think with you which is the most adequate solution for that specific problem. Let me make it more clear. As a product owner, how do you feel when someone else defines the priorities for you? Do you like that? Most probably you are like this, don't define the priority for me, I hate it. Because you are the owner of the priorities. And if developers are the ones who are not defining the solution for the problem, the feeling is exactly the same. There will be a lack of ownership. You don't want to do that. Now let's talk about the second problem, the focus on the estimates. Actually, I will be very honest with you. Estimates don't matter at all. It doesn't matter how you do it. You know why? Because estimates are imprecise by nature. They are not commitments. And when you focus on the estimates, developers will perceive as commitments and they will be reluctant to give you the estimate. The most important aspect of the estimate is not the number they give itself. It's the conversation that happens around it to agree on an estimate. For example, if one developer thinks it is too simple and someone else thinks it is too complex, when they share the different perspectives, that is the beauty behind the estimates, because they will understand better how they can implement something. So don't focus on getting a number. A sign that you are focusing too much on the estimates is when developers are discussing minor details to give you a number. For example, if you use the estimates to plan the sprints, where the only thing that matters is delivering more story points at the end of each sprint, you're doing correct. It doesn't matter that at all. What matters is maximizing the outcome at the end of each sprint. Estimates is just a mean to an end. Don't pressure the team to get estimates. You should help them to build a shared understanding. The next aspect is, sometimes the team is not ready to talk about something. Don't pressure them to talk about what they don't know. Let's imagine a scenario. You realize that the cost of the customer service is too high, yet the customer satisfaction is too low. There's something which needs to be done here. And you think it might be a chatbot and automate somewhere to be more effective. And then bring this to the developers. And they have no idea how to implement a chatbot. Before you jump to the next part of pressuring them, think about it. Do you want to deal with furious developers? Do you want to cause a civil war inside the team? If you want, then pressure them. Exactly. Go and say, we need to estimate this, we need to get a solution. Then you will have to deal with furious developers and they will not be very friendly to you. The situation will be very ugly. Honestly, I've done that. Don't do it. It's not funny at all. But if you want to escape from this, as a team, are we ready to have this conversation? And if they say, no, we're not, then what about giving them some time to understand how they could proceed? You can create a spike and say, at the end of this spike, we will understand how we can implement a chatbot in our solution, or what is the next step. And you define the time frame. For example, invest 2 days researching how to implement the chatbot in our solution. If you do that, developers will be friend to you. If you don't do that and pressure them, be ready for the civil war. Another aspect of the backlog refinement is bringing items to be refined that are never worked. What am I talking about? Some product owners love to have a very extensive product backlog. I don't know why they like that. I hate actually. I think the product backlog should be as lean as possible. The same goes to the refinement. For example, if you bring something to talk to the developers, which would be implemented only in 6 months, or even worse, you don't have a foreseeable future for that, then you are just wasting the time of everyone inside the Scrum team. Why? Let's say you are talking about something that might happen in 6 months, and then you refine and so on, and it's ready to go into a sprint. But then you don't do next month, you don't do in 2 months, you are going to do that only in 6 months. Do you think the developers will still remember the conversation you had with them? Of course not. If you talk about something 6 months ago, probably it will be a problem. Let me ask you one question. Do you remember what you had for lunch yesterday? Do you remember what you had for dinner last Saturday? If you don't, do you really think developers would remember what you talked to them 6 months ago? So don't waste anyone's time. It's easy to keep as simple as possible. My suggestion: only talk about things you believe it can be implemented in 2 or maximum 3 sprints. Ideally 2, because then it's still fresh on the mind. The closer you can work on that, the better. Now the last part I want to talk to you is about the endless technical discussions. What am I talking about here? Let me give you an example. Once we had a backlog refinement of 1 hour, and we could refine only 2 product backlog items. Why? Because the developers fell into the technical discussions, and they were discussing the API, the SFTP, and the connection, and the microservice, and everything else. Everything we shouldn't discuss during that moment. The only thing I wanted to do during that meeting was to disappear, because it was really pointless. I want to hide myself, but I couldn't. I had to be there. But I didn't know how to turn around the meeting. But I want to tell you what you should avoid. Let's step back. What is the refinement for? It's the moment the Scrum team will go and check the product backlog items and refine them to a level that can go into a sprint. Does it mean we should have the implementational plan defined? No, it doesn't mean that. It means we should understand the problem so that we can understand which solution to implement. During the sprint planning, the developers will have the time to break that into a workable chunk for them. And then they can discuss about their funny APIs and tasty microservices and delicious MongoDB and so on. But it's not the moment during the backlog refinement. So my suggestion is, you should provide an environment of trust, where developers trust you. They know you are not going to blame them if they cannot implement something, because estimates are imprecise, and if you take estimates as commitment, you can be sure developers will ensure that refinement is focused on the technical aspect, because they want to be 100% certain they can build what they promise on the time you expect. So in Scrum, we accept we don't know everything up front. You should provide these for the developers, a permission to fail. It's important, otherwise, be ready to fall into technical discussions. To summarize all of this part of this video, once you go to the backlog refinement, you focus on the problem because you want to build ownership with developers. You don't want them to lack collaboration. It's a one team, one product, one goal. That's the most important. And estimates is just the means to an end, and the end is building the shared understanding. And the other aspect is you don't try to refine things that you have no foreseeable future for that. If you don't know if you're implementing during the next 2 or 3 sprints, just don't do it. Wait until the moment you know, and then you talk what needs to be discussed. And the last part I want to tell you is how long should the refinement session be? This really depends on the size of the team, the maturity, and everything else. I would say if you are working in 2-week sprints, 2 hours per week might be too long, but 30 minutes per week might be too little. I like something like 1 hour per week or 1.5 hours every second week. But it's up to you. You need to experiment and see what works for you. If you like this video, thumbs up. And if you want more content similar to this, subscribe to the channel. And I would be curious, what are your experiences with the backlog refinement? Write some comments and let's exchange on that. Thanks for watching.